And hello, Clao. It's a big pleasure to be here with you. Um, Unfortunately, I wasn't able to be synchronically with you. However, I am going to try to do my best to tell you my story of being a Colombian student living in Italy. And if there's any questions, comments, doubts, regards after this presentation, feel absolutely free to reach out, to contact me, or ask loud questions, and we will find a way to interact in the near future. So without further ado, let me start telling you a little bit about what has been my experience here. I have designed a presentation, so let me share with you guys. I am assuming you start seeing it now, so we can start working with it, okay? So this presentation, I've thought thoroughly about the process and the name of it, and I decided to name it La Dolce Vita for a reason, and that is that was one of the main things that kept me going while doing the entire process of moving to Italy. That is what I kept telling myself, like, I'm gonna do this because I want to be living La Dolce Vita in Italy. And this is part of what I've been trying to do. Of course, it's not all of it. I am currently doing my master's here, but it is very easy, or at least to the moment, for the couple of months that I've been living here, it hasn't been complicated to mix the pleasure of life in Italy and the academic process that I am currently going through. Before I start telling you about my experience, let me share with you about myself and who am I, and just so you have a general background of myself. So as you saw the first slide, I'm Lina Ramirez. I am a psychologist born and raised in Bogota with a Paisa influence. I graduated from La Pontificia Universidad Javeriana a couple of years ago, and I am now a master runner in the Clinical, Social, and Intercultural Psychology program at the Università di Padova here in Italy. I work as a researcher of behavior, sensory, emotion, and perceptual experience. And what I have been doing for the past couple of years is to design and program qualitative, behavioral, and psychophysiological experiments, all in order to better understand human experience. So during this process of my working life, I have designed, coordinated, and executed high-impact projects, not only in Latin America, but also in Europe and Asia. I currently work as a lecturer in La Sabana University for the market research class in the marketing department. And additionally to this, I am part of the Psychophysica research team. We're basically a multinational group of geeks researchers trying to address pressing social problematics, combining different disciplines in order to have a holistic understanding of the process. So I have had the honor and the pleasure to work with people in behavioral science fields, neuroscience, medicine, engineering, design, computational science, administrative science. And last but not least, I work as a freelance behavioral scientist for companies in Colombia and the UK. So that is kind of my professional perspective. More on a personal note, I am a big hedonist, so I'm always looking for the pleasure of life. I'm always looking for that sweet spot of life. For those of you who do not know this concept, in photography there is the concept, and in cooking there's the concept of the sweet spot, and in sports as well. And it's just like this perfect combination of sweet and sour, or light and darkness, that makes the perfect picture. That's what I tend to look for in life. My passions are traveling. It's one of the main reasons I'm here. I love reading, I love dancing, I love sleeping, and I love social work. So I hope to start doing a little bit of that soon enough. But that is so you have a general idea of who I am and who you have in front of you in your screens. At this, one of the most often questions that I get, even before moving here, is why did I choose Italy? And I do think it's kind of self-explanatory because it's an amazing country in many senses. But at least for me, the food, the culture, the language, the art, and the people were basically the main drivers of this situation. So, as I said, I am a hedonist, so food is a big part of my life. And being in one of the kitchens of the world was a very attractive and an appealing situation to be in. Cultural wise, I do think Italy has a perfect balance between being very similar to us Latinos and the advantages of European countries in terms of quality of life. Additionally to this, it's one of the birds of culture in any point of history that we can think about. So from the Roman Empire to a bastion for the Second World War. So I do think there's a lot of things to talk about culturally wise and learn culturally wise in Italy. I love languages and I always wanted to learn Italian, so I thought it was a great opportunity to study my master's and at the same time learn this language that I wanted to learn. Art-wise, there's a lot of art movements here in Italy that I felt attracted to, from a postmodernist waves to Renaissantist. And people, at least the people that I've met before moving here, were always very kind, very open. I felt that it was really easy to connect with. So I took a shot and I decided that people wise was also a very interesting reason to move here. And at least through this moment, I have not been left down. So I hope that continues like that. So the way I have thought this presentation is kind of tell you about my perspective for the past couple of months that I've been living in Italy. If these expectations that I have of moving to Italy were actually right, or if there was somewhere that I said, maybe I could have gone somewhere else, or maybe my expectations were just too high here. So just to give you kind of my inner vision of how my dream life would be and how it's actually going. Of course, I'm very biased, but I hope I'll do my best. I have decided, and thinking about this with Clao, I decided that maybe there's a lot of things that I can say, but I tried to add little videos and images of my real kind of everyday life here, so you can be yourselves the judge on how is it going, and maybe I'm not romanticizing it too much. So as I just said, culturally wise, Italy was very, very appealing and very, very attractive for many reasons. Basically, from the start, and I think maybe you have heard about this expression, but I think it's really accurate, and it's Italy is an open air museum. Basically, what this means is that everywhere you go, everywhere you look, there's a bit of history still vibrant. So you can be walking through ancient Rome Empire building and then switch to Renaissance and then switch to modern architecture in Italy. And even if they look as they are very different one from each other, they merge perfectly in this ambiance that Italy creates. So just to give you a little bit of a notion of where I am, I'm not in Rome or Milano or any of those big capitals. I'm in a small city called Padua. It's 25 minutes away from Venice by train. And it might not be like Rome, that you see the big buildings and the Parthenon and like the Coliseum. I am in a city that it's really small. compared to Bogota, everything is from a walking distance. So my university is 18 minutes walking. The city center is 15 minutes walking. The train station is just a couple of blocks from here. But everything is in a very um, relatively small place. So everything is together, which for me, having lived in Bogota for many years, is something very interesting because I'm not used to having everything so easily, right? I'm used to having to drive a car or take Transmilenio or the bus, and just being able to use my own 2 feet to go everywhere in this town is amazing. And while walking or by using bike, because it's one of the most common transportation systems here, you are able, as I just said, to go through the entire European history just in a couple of blocks. That in terms of architecture, that in terms of history for the things that have happened. So even though I'm not in Rome or in Milano or in Napoli, or in Bologna, that is really close from here too, even at being in a small town, you still have historical elements everywhere you go. And to me, that is always fascinating because I keep learning and keep discovering everyday new places and everyday new information. So not only in Palawa-wise, but generally in Europe, it's been amazing to think that I am walking where Augusto could have worked, or the Medici, or Julio Cesar, or to be in places that were witnesses of the fall of fascism. So one of the main things that are predominantly proud of here in Padua is that the university per se, the University of Padua, was a resistance bastion of the fascism. So the university per se is an institution of resistance in the Second World War, and they organized themselves and they organized the institution in a way that they could protect, especially the Jewish students, and block a little bit the advancement of the Nazi and the fascism here in Italy. So I think that that was very interesting and something that was attractive to me when I started thinking and looking and learning about the place that I was going to move into. And now that I'm here, my expectations were clearly accomplished because it's even better than what I expected, culturally wise. Of course, we could not talk about Italy without talking about food. So we have every type of pasta, risotto, wine, gelato, and obviously Italian culture is keen on and very centered on the cooking and the eating, which for me is actually great. But it's not only pasta and risotto. It's a mix of a lot of cultures, a lot of flavors, a lot of primo piatto and secondo piatto. I'll go into that for a second. But before I start talking about my experience with food and Italian food, I just wanted to share with you a quick video. When I told my roommates that I was going to be doing these presentations, they decided that they wanted to be part of it and they wanted to bring to you a little bit of my everyday Sunday afternoon here in Padua. So let me introduce you to two of the funniest roommates that I have had um, in a long time. They want to be part. They wanted to be part of this, and here they are. Give me a second. PowerPoint is not cooperating, but here it is. So now let me introduce you to my roommates. It's not letting me be dramatic. So that was basically a Sunday afternoon ritual in the apartment. So Danilo, one of the roommates that you just met, he cooks carbonara for everyone who's interested in participating in lunch in the apartment. So what you saw in the pan was pancetta, and on the other two pans, and he was cooking the pasta. And it's not like as at least as I do it back home, just boil water, put the pasta on, and then it's ready to serve. There is an entire process of it, and the heating and the temperature and the exact point to take the pasta out and the eggs in order to make it feel fresh and give it like that recently cooked pasta. So that is part of the things that I leave here at home when we're all just in a good mood on a Sunday afternoon. Recently, I taught you about the primo piatto and the secondo piatto. This is something that I have been trying to get used to while living here, and it is the amount of food. So we all know that the food is great, right? So we all know that Italy is well known for delicious cuisine, but I wasn't fully aware of the amount of food here in Italy. So, and per serving. So here in Italy, when we have lunch, of course this is not every day, but especially Sundays, when we have lunch, there is a multi-step dining. So there's an aperitivo that is like what we call la entrada. So it could be cold or it could be warm, and you have just like the small dish, just like as we have it, as an appetizer, right? Start munching a little bit and opening your appetite. After that, we'll go with the primo piatto. So it's generally pasta or rice, or just like something that for us back home would actually be lunch. For them is only the primo piatto. And then the secondo piatto, it's more meat related, but bear in mind that both primo piatto and secondo piatto have contorni, which is like the dressing. So it could be salad, it could be French fries, it could be patate, it could be cheese, it could be bread. So it's like having two full lunches at the same time. And if the appetizer, the first dish, the second dish was not enough, of course, then we have the dessert and the cafe and amanza cafe. So the dessert, I think I don't have to explain it that much because it's multicultural. And then we have the coffee because it helps you digest better the food. And there's another thing that is the amancia cafe that here in Italy it's generally the limoncello. So it's a licorice beverage that helps you digest everything because it's so much that they actually have a moment in the food in order to help you cope with all the food that you have ingested. So here I just added a couple of pictures that I have been taking for the weeks and months that I've been living in Italy. So the first one is just a refrigerator full of something that I think could not get more Italian, at least on my perspective. So we have cheese, we have wine, we have olives, and olive oil and aceto balsamico. This is a homemade attempt of doing pizza on our own. Of course, it's not the traditional Italian pizza because it was a bunch of international students trying to do it, but it was actually not bad and it was a lot of food, so I think we did Italians proud there. This is a box of mixed selection chocolate that we bought with my friends in Venice the first time we went there together, and I can't describe the texture of the chocolate. I have had the possibility and the great luck to try chocolate in many places in the world. Of course, this was not like specialized chocolate or whatever, but I think that the mix of having great chocolate in a place like Venice just makes the sensory experience so much better. This picture right here was actually my first Italian dinner with my friends. So it was the first time we went out to an Italian restaurant to eat, drink. You have traditional pasta, pizza, and lasagna. So I think in the picture we kind of summarize a little bit of what gastronomical experience I was expecting to have in Italy. Coffee is a great matter here in Italy as well. So when I arrived here and people talked about how Italians were in love with coffee, I used to think like, I'm Colombian, you know, like seriously, are you telling me about coffee in Italy? But for them, it's once again, it's a ritual, and they have a lot of rules about coffee. So it's not like us that we have a tinto, and that's kind of it. Obviously, not in all cases, but generally. Here they have specific types of coffee and a very specific way of doing it, and specific times on when drinking coffee and which type of coffee. So just let me give you a quick example. Um, I love coffee. I love the smell of coffee, and I thought I was gonna miss Colombian coffee. But one of my favorite coffees, I know this might not sound very formal and academical, is cappuccino. Because of course you're mixing it with milk, sometimes people add sugar to it, so you miss the essence of cappuccino, of the coffee. And I got here and it was late, around 5 or 6. It's winter, so it was already dark, and I just wanted a cappuccino because I wanted something warm. And when I got to the place and I asked for the cappuccino, everyone looked at me like, why? Um, After something they gave it to me, they gave me my cappuccino, but I really felt like the barista was looking at me a little bit weird. And I later learned that cappuccino here in Italy, Italians only drink it in the morning, so generally up to 10:30, 11 a.m. And after that is only espresso or other types of coffee, but not milk and coffee together. And I was talking to my friends about this experience, and someone actually told me, she's from the United States, that she wanted, last year in the summer, she wanted an iced coffee. So if we go to Juan Valdez, or if she went to Starbucks, she would get the same coffee, but with ice, right? So she went to this bar. Here the bars are not like back home. We call bars to kind of the cafeterias, and she asked for an iced coffee, and the the barista couldn't understand why she wanted or what she wanted, and she always thought that it was a language problem, like a translation problem, that she wasn't clear expressing what she needed with her iced coffee. So she just told him it was the shots of espresso that she would regularly have, but in a glass with ice, right? At the end, when she got the tray, the barista gave her the glass with ice on a side and the coffee on another. And he just told her that she couldn't do that. He couldn't ruin a perfectly fine cup of coffee. So he wasn't going to do it. And if she wanted to do it, it was fine, but he was not going to be part of that murdering of coffee. So they take their coffee very seriously. And the last picture it was taken in one of the most popular restaurants in Parma. That is, UNESCO defined it as a gastronomical place in the world that must be seen. So if Bologna is the kitchen of Italy, Parma is the kitchen of Bologna, even they're not the same cities. But it is where Parmesan cheese was created. They have their own type of pasta. That's what you can see in the image. So there's two-color pasta, and they have a particular name for this type of pasta that was created in Parma, as well as many other curated meats. So if you're ever thinking about eating in Italy, you should definitely think about going to Bologna and to Parma. That is less popular than Bologna, but apparently is even more classic than Bologna cuisine. But I wouldn't be fair about talking about my experience in Italy if I only talk about pasta, lasagna, pizza, risotto, because I had a very particular experience myself. When I arrived to Italy, the housing situation in Padua, the place that I'm leaving, was very complicated and I couldn't find a place to stay. So I had to leave in Venice for a couple of months. And I was lucky enough to find an apartment with some classmates of mine. This was kind of a very crazy story. So it was a very stressful moment before moving here because I couldn't find a place. I was a couple of weeks before taking my plane and arriving to Italy, but I had no place to stay. Of course, I could take a room in a hotel for a couple of nights, but I knew it was something that I couldn't afford in the long term. So one morning, it was the weirdest story. So we have in this moment we have a 6 hour difference gap. Back then we had a 7 hour difference gap. And I sleep a lot, like I'm a heavy sleeper. But I remember a Saturday morning, I woke up, I was in my bed back home in Colombia, and I couldn't keep sleeping. I know it was already morning because I saw the sun, but I wanted to keep sleeping and I couldn't, and I knew if I grabbed my phone, then that was it. I was not going to be able to sleep anymore. So I fight with myself to sleep for a couple of minutes, and then I said like, oh, okay, I'm gonna take my phone. And I did, and I had a message in the chat group of my master program of an Iranian classmate saying that they were looking for roommates. And when I went to look for them, when I went to open the message, it said that they were looking for roommates and they had to give the reason to the landlord if there was going to be an extra person by midday. So just to sum up a little bit of the story, it was 2 minutes before midday in Europe time, and they were looking for another roommate, and they were asking if someone was interested. So 2 minutes before the deadline, I was able to send the message and say that I was interested in that room or in that apartment. I had no idea who I was going to stay with. I had no idea how many people. I had no idea how the apartment looked like. I had no idea of anything, but I needed a room. I was kind of in a desperate situation. And after saying that I was going to take the apartment with the guys, I learned that it was going to be 4 Iranian people and myself in a 2-bedroom apartment with 1 bathroom. Naturally, everyone was like, what the did she do? Like, you don't know anything about them, you don't know anything about the culture. They all speak the same language and you don't. Like, how is it going to be? And I just thought I needed to figure it out. It was my only opportunity. I needed to go and get it. And I did. And it was the best roommates I could ever ask for. Just as a random comment, we were very lucky and there was a problem in the heating of that apartment. So they gave us another apartment close to the station with an extra bedroom and an extra bathroom. And it were the best 2 months I think I've had in many, many years. I eliminated a lot of the cliches that I had about Iranian people. I learned about a culture that I had no idea. I learned about a cuisine that I had no idea about and I absolutely fell in love with. And I just met the nicest person that I could ever imagine. So my gastronomical experience here in Italy would not be complete if I ignore the fact that Iranian gastronomy was fundamental in the first 2 months here. So the first thing that you see here is ormosapsi. So it's a traditional Iranian dish that takes a lot of time to be done. So it's kind of a meat stew with a lot of Iranian herbs. And in order to have this around 6 p.m., they have to start cooking it around 8 a.m. because they leave it in the stove to stew for many hours. So at the end of the day, the meat is just super tender and super soft and super flavorful. And this is regular rice. They actually have something that's similar to our pega. They burn the bottom part of the rice, but they burn it with potato. So it's a mix between burnt rice and burnt potato, which adds like um, a very rich, deep flavor to the rice. And in the top, they cook a special rice with saffron just for decoration. Nuts was always a fundamental part of our everyday food and snacks in the house. So you can see almonds, you can see pistachios, you can see something that they call like mountain pistachios, you see dates, you see figs. So there's a lot of not eating. Obviously, tea is the fundamental part. This was just a commercial tea because they had bags, plastic bags full of different herbs to do tea every day. And for someone who never drank tea back home, was a big discovery. Now I have a cup of tea or 2 cups of tea a day, thanks to my roommate, because they used to have tea every moment of the day there was tea boiling in the kitchen. So I think that is a habit that I have acquired myself, and I really like, thanks to them, because it was something I didn't have before. And this is just the way they put the ingredients they were going to use for cooking. This is rosemary, saffron, cinnamon, and some dried fruits they were going to use for chicken that was absolutely delicious. And then again, there are some very sad attempts of dealing with the nostalgia of Colombian food because, I mean, of course pasta is awesome, and of course risotto, gelato, or mesapsi, pistachio is great, but we do miss our food. So this was a Colombian night that we did at my apartment. We tried to do arroz con pollo y patacones. It was very far on how my grandmother's taste is, but I promise we did our best. And this was just an afternoon with some friends trying to do kind of a bandeja paisa if it's possible. So this is canned beans, plantain that we buy it from the African market, pancetta once again, rice in the bottom, and our eggs. So it was a very Italian version of bandeja paisa. But you know, when you're craving home and you're missing home, even this canned beans with a little love and fun and Colombian music makes you feel a little bit closer. So it's not only about the Italian gastronomy that is amazing, but it's a mix of international food, which makes it interesting, and I'm happy I can contribute to making other students and other people and my flatmates experience as interesting as it has been for me, gastronomically wise. I said we talked about the people and how I thought Italian people were nice and culturally similar to ourselves, but there was also the part of wanting an international experience. So of course, wanting to interact with Italian people was fundamental, but I knew when I came to Padua that it was an international bubble. Padua has one of the biggest international programs of Italian universities, so it was not going to be only Italian people and myself, but you see people from all across the world. So I have classmates from Iran, as I just said, from Turkey, from Germany, from Spain, from Georgia, from Russia, from Brazil, from Mexico, from Panama. So we are just a bunch of international people trying to do our best. And the advantage of having international communities that you have international friends, and you learn about food, you learn about music, you learn about their culture. So only here in my apartment, one day I can wake up to Colombian playlists or to German music or to Italian music, and back home I could wake up to Hindi music or to Iranian music. And you just learn from that because it becomes part of your everyday. So you're constantly challenging your stereotypes, you're constantly challenging your comfort zone, and that helps you keep growing and becoming, at least to me, a better person. So that was one of the things I wanted to do, and I can fully check this in my list of experiences because it has been more than amazing in terms of knowing great people, vibrant, full of life, willing to just eat and take advantage of every experience that you can. So this is definitely something that I can say has not only matched my expectations, but overcome. As I said, I'm a highly indulgent person, so traveling is everything for me. It's one of my main goals in life and something that I enjoy the most doing in life. And traveling in Italy is kind of self-explanatory, right? I think we have all seen movies in La Toscana, Rome, Napoli, Positano, Milano, Verona. So no matter the focus of your traveling, so if you want to backpack, there's places to do it. If you want nature, there are places to do it. If you want fashion and luxury, you have places to do it. If you want just like a chill summer, you have places to do it. So I think that that was one of the things that attracted me the most of Italy. And I think that being Colombian is something that is very hard to top, in the sense that as Italy, we Colombians have a fabulous country to travel, once again, in many different moods, right? So we have Cartagena, but we also have a couple of miles from that, El Tayrona or La Guajira, and we have the Amazon, and we have El Desierto de la Tatacoa, but we also have Medellin, and we have Bogotá, and we have Barranquilla, and we have Bucaramanga, but we also have Los Llanos, and we have Palomino, and we have Nuquí. So how can we top the rich experience that our country gives us travel-wise? Um, it was hard for me to think about it because, as I just said, I do think we have a great country, but I do think Italy gave me a great excuse to keep traveling and discovering the different traveling moods here. Here's a quick video I try to very quickly made. A very quick video I quickly made. It's a short video I quickly made based on my last couple of days of vacations before starting my master's here in Italy, and I just wanted to share it with you guys. So one of the advantages that Italy and in general Europe has in comparison to Colombia, for example, is the accessibility of traveling. It is amazing, and it's super well coordinated, and it's very not expensive. So you can, if you organize yourself pretty well, you can find amazing trips for very, very, very low cost. So Italy has this great train system done and built. So you can almost cross the country in a matter of hours for very reasonable prices. And that was something that was very, very attractive to me. And in a personal note, other than the possibility of traveling by train, There's also the possibility of bus, but that might take a little longer. Or flights are also very, very cheap. Is that, as I just said, I had the no. As I just said, I live a couple of minutes away from Venice. And before moving here to Padua, I was actually living in Venice. So I had the possibility, as you saw in the first pictures, to be on the Carnivale, so the Venetian Carnival. And it was just mind blowing because it's a festival that has been famous for many centuries, and that it's a traditional and it's highly rooted to the traditions of Italy. So the possibility of just casually strolling through Venice on a Thursday afternoon and meeting people fully disguised and fully costumed was just mind blowing. So the possibility of having those experiences that maybe I couldn't even dreamed about before makes it all absolutely worth it. So in terms of traveling, Italy has it has met my expectations, and even when the currency is not very favorable, you can find very good deals for traveling. My classmates are planning a trip in a couple of weeks to Napoli. A Colombian friend was last weekend in Budapest for a couple of days. Tickets to Madrid or Berlin are for 10, 12 euros during the week time. So you are very well connected to Italy and to the rest of Europe. So for someone who likes traveling as myself, it's great. Obviously, one of the main reasons why I decided to move from Colombia and to do it to Italy was because of my master's. So I wanted to continue with my studies, and the Università di Padova, that is the university that I'm studying at, gave me many arguments to choose Italy aside from the ones that I have been mentioning before. So there's a lot of academical things that made Italy and Padua a very attractive option. So Italy, Padua is the #1 university in Italy for psychology. So it's the top university for psychology, and it is in the top 250 worldwide with a very affordable prices. It is also recognized here in Italy for being the best university in teaching quality and research quality. That are things that I'm highly interested in, so that was great. As I said, it has a very large international community, so I knew that was going to be great, not to feel like an outsider and to integrate myself better. As I just said, it has a very efficient transportation systems, and there are great things about the university that, even if they're historical facts, made the university cool and interesting. So fun fact #1, Galileo Galilei was actually a professor here at the university, and the physics department has an entire building and an entire observatory built in his honor. So obviously physics is a great department here in the university and something that everyone at the Ateneo is very proud of. And another fun fact that at least for me was very meaningful in terms of the ideology and the values of the university is that the first woman who actually got a university degree, who got a PhD in the world, was here. So Elena Lucrecia Cornaro Piscopia, Piscopia. Elena Lucrecia Cornaro Piscopia was the first woman who ever had a PhD in philosophy in the world and an actual university degree, and it was here in Padua. So that is something that as a woman and as a woman in science, I feel very proud of, and I feel very excited to share and talk about. As well, there's a parallel between traditional universities in Europe and Padua University. The university was actually built as a revolutionary movement to traditional academy. I don't know if you know this, but the first university in the world was here in Italy. It was La Università di Bologna. And it was a very bureaucratic university for obvious reasons. So they were starting to build an institution. However, many of the students in Bologna felt that things were not being done right. So the professors weren't paid enough, and some others were paid just too much. And the possibility of getting in was maybe sometimes due to who you were and not for your capacities. So students from Bologna University decided to move and build their own university with their own rules. And the students were the one who decided who to hire, why to hire it, how much they should earn, how to be involved in the administrative process. So, of course, students should not be all the decision makers. There's administrative people for that. But the fact that we count so much for the university was something that as well was very attractive to me. In terms of the classes and the courses and the lessons and the professors, I've had a very particular experience. I wish I could tell you more about what it is to have classes here, but I've only had class for 1 week here because my first semester I had to do it back home, and it was actually a big challenge. Let me show you how my first semester looked like. So for bureaucratical visa problems, I wasn't able to be here on my first semester. I had to do it virtually, so fully remote from Colombia. And the pictures you just saw were the sunrise in different days back home. So I was taking classes remotely, but synchronically. So I had to adjust my Colombian time schedule to the Italian timing, which was a gigantic challenge. I had class from 2:30 in the morning to 9:30 in the morning, and then my Colombian day would start. I would start working from there. So I decided that I could complain and just cry and not sleep a lot, or I could do the best out of it. And I just started randomly taking pictures of the sunsets that I thought were beautiful and worth picture taking. And before I realized it, I ended having many sunrises through my living room window. And when I got here, I took this picture of my first day in class. This is one of my best friends here. She's from India, and she's one very good friend. She's from Brazil. And I realized I could actually contrast my living room to having class here for the first time on a Monday morning. And it felt amazing. I felt like all the sacrifices, the going to bed at 7 p.m. and waking up at 2 a.m. and having a messed up schedule and maybe missing things with my family and my friends was worth it because it took me here. So that's where I want to go last but not least, and this might all sound very glamorous or pretty and fun, and it is, don't get me wrong. It's been an amazing experience and I wouldn't change it for the world, but be aware that it's not all rainbows and roses. I speak 3 languages, which not includes Italian yet, so not being able to fully communicate might be an issue sometimes, especially working wise. So I am fully paying for my master's here. I'm doing it on my own. Of course, my family has my back in many senses, but not financially. So I have to find a job here, and not speaking Italian has been a problem. So if you're thinking about moving here, if you're interested in moving here, this might sound obvious, but I would highly recommend you to start working on your Italian before you moved here. I took 1 semester of Italian, but it's clearly not enough. So if you have time and if your plan is to move here, start now if you have not started yet, because it's definitely going to be a game changer for you. Another problem that you might take into consideration if you're wanting or planning to move to Italy is the bureaucracy. So when I started doing my research to move here, I met a Colombian girl who was also a student of psychology in La Javeriana, but she moved to Padua many years ago to do her bachelor's. And she taught about how amazing Padua was and the classes and everything. But she told me, like, you have to be patient because every bureaucratic thing here is bad. And I thought to myself, she's not used to it anyway. She forgot how it is to do bureaucratic paperwork here in Colombia. But no, actually our system works really well compared to everything here. You have to send a bunch of mails that no one's ever going to respond. And you have to wait a lot of weeks to get an answer for one mail. And there's so many processes that you have to go through and take so much time. It's really overwhelming, but it's the only way of getting it. So bureaucratic processes and paperwork here is a very big pain in the ass. I'm sorry, I don't know if I'm supposed to say that, but yeah, it's a pain in the head. It's a headache. Obviously, a currency is not our best ally, so the change from pesos to euros might not be very favorable. However, it's not impossible, right? So we're not the first people doing it, and we're not going to be the last. But definitely it's something that you have to take into consideration if financially you have to consider elements and variables. And last but not least, due to the context, well, the situation and the tension between Russia and Ukraine has not been easy. So obviously this is a reason to be very tense and anxious worldwide. But here in Europe, it's been very concerning because it touches and it affects us directly in terms of economically wise, in terms of the resources, in terms of the migration, in terms of life expenses. So just so you have an idea, 46% of Italian gas comes from Russia and Ukraine. So that has been affected. Prices are going up. Of course, we're getting a lot of migration. However, and one of the things that I highly appreciate from Europe is the solidarity. So even though we're all very concerned, that doesn't stop from manifesting and raising our voices for people in Ukraine and Russia that are having a very, very, very hard time. So this past weeks has been very full of tension, very full of uncertainty, especially as international students, because we're not fully certain of what's going to happen. I think no one knows, not even Putin at this point. But yeah, it's definitely have been a concern of us because we're slowly going out from the COVID situation. So from the end of March, Italy won't be in a health emergency state anymore. But now we do not know if we're going to be in an emergency state due to a possible war. So probably if you're thinking about moving here in a couple of months or a couple of years, hopefully this is not going to be a concern of you, but it has become part of my experience as a Colombian student living in Italy during this couple of weeks, because it's definitely a topic that has been affecting us on our everyday life. And just to close this hour that I have been talking non-stop and probably already tired of listening to me, this is a video that I made almost a month ago with all my January pictures that I thought were worth it of my process and my first month here in Italy. And I wanted to share with you because even when everything is not perfect and when we have a lot of problems and I had to work real hard to get there, as I just said before, I wouldn't change it for the world because everything has fulfilled my experiences and topped it. So I can't wait to see what's gonna come next. So here is my last video. I hope you enjoyed as much as I have enjoyed being a Colombian student in Italy.
Say what you wanna say to me now. I wanna wake up with you in the morning. Show me there's nothing fake to me now. I wanna wake up with you in the morning. Say what you wanna say to me now. I wanna wake up with you in the morning. Show me there's nothing fake to me now. I wanna wake up with you in the morning. Turn this room, turn it to an ocean. Let me float around. Eyes closed, like we're dreaming even when we're not. You and me got a whole other meaning, I don't know how. You and me just know how it feels when we're falling in love. Say what you wanna say to me now. I wanna wake up with you in the morning. Show me there's nothing fake to me now. I wanna wake up with you in the morning. Say what you wanna say to me now. I wanna wake up with you in the morning. Show me there's nothing fake to me now. I wanna wake up with you in the morning. We can do nothing at all. So what, if you're stupid then you know it's nothing wrong. You and me got a whole other meaning, I don't know how. You and me just know how it feels when we're falling in love. Say what you wanna say to me now. I wanna wake up.
Yeah, so that was pretty much it. As I just said at the beginning, if you have any questions, if you want to dig a little deeper into a specific topic, if there's anything that you want to know about, do not hesitate on reaching out to me. Clao has my mail. You can look for me in LinkedIn. You can ask her directly, and with all the love and the happiness in the world, I will answer all the questions, and hopefully if you're interested, we can find a time to actually meet and interact in real time, because it would be awesome if you want to do that. If not, it's also fine. I hope you met and you thought this time was worth it, was interested, and I gave something meaningful for you. So I hope you have a great rest of the day and a great rest of the week, and I will hopefully see you very soon. Clau, un beso y nos vemos la próxima.
Danilo.
Yes.
From a historian point of view, who's doing his master's in one of the most prestigious universities in Italy,
Yes.
why do you think in Italy you don't speak Latin if you had Rome?
You can repeat the question in Spanish.
Sí.
Please.
¿Por qué crees que los italianos no hablan en latín si tuvieron a Roma?
You can repeat the question in French?
Si. Alors, pourquoi vous ne parlez pas le latin si vous avez eu Rome?
Italiano?
Perché loro non parlano latino si qui è Roma?
Yes, because uh, because the the Roman Empire fall with, for the barbaric invasion, and the barbaric bring another language, and and this type of language mix it with the Latino and created another language. Uh, this is the story, I think.
Samuel, the first question is how Italians created or found out about their gastronomy?
I don't know. I think it's like more of a process in the years. So you discover like new recipes, and Italians like are a culture that it's really, I think, divided between regions. So there are a lot of various things you can do. So I think it's more a process than a discovery. So.
Awesome. Do you think that Italy is visited more for the food or for the history?
Both, I would think, but maybe for the places, and then you also discover the dishes and the cuisine.
Awesome. When it comes to gastronomy, what are the secrets to have such a rich variety of plates and ingredients?
I think, as I said, like there are a lot of regions with many different recipes from the past. So if you put them all together, the Italian cuisine, like it's more divided than the other, and so maybe there's something that the other country doesn't have. So.
Awesome. And the last question is, for you, why pizza is one of the fundamental pillars of Italian gastronomy?
Because it's loved all over the world, and it's one of our main specialties. So I think it's something that everyone can enjoy.
Love it. Thank you.